Today, we're joined by Virginia Elder, founder of Podcast Abundance and an incredible advocate for amplifying women's voices in the financial podcasting space. In this episode, we go into what it really means to find abundance and balance while navigating the messy middle of life. Virginia shares her story of transforming financial stress and personal challenges into a journey of empowerment and growth. From eliminating a mountain of debt to building a successful business, her journey is a testament to resilience, grace, and the power of community. If you've ever felt like you're in the middle of a stormy chapter and need a reminder that it's okay to find beauty in the mess, this conversation is for you. So settle in and let's get into it. Hi there. Welcome to the Empowered and Embodied Show. I'm Kim Romaine.
And I'm Louise Neal. We're two transformational coaches who are also fellow travelers on the path of growth and self-discovery. And we're inviting you along for the ride.
That's right. We're right here in the trenches with you, navigating the ups and downs of life. And each week we'll be sharing our own experiences, bringing you conversations with amazing guests, and exploring insights and strategies that have helped us find more clarity, confidence, and ease in our lives.
And trust us, we do not have it all figured out. We're learning and growing right alongside you.
So if you're ready to rise above the chaos, doubt, and confusion that sometimes life throws our way,
and step into a more empowered and embodied version of yourself,
then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Kim Romaine, and I'm joined today by my other co-host,
me, Louise Neal.
And our guest today is
Virginia.
Hey, Virginia, we're so glad that you're here. We're going to let the world know a little bit about you in just a few minutes, but we want to start today like we start every day. What are we celebrating?
I'm celebrating today community. I think not with maybe a capital C, maybe a small c, maybe both. I'm just been so, I guess, warmed by my community, and a reminder this last week of not just who they are, but how they're there for me. It's been really amazing to see folks just raise their hand and want to support me in all kinds of ways. Me, us, all of the things. And I forget sometimes when you're kind of head down, really, really busy, forget to celebrate those things and those people. And so that's where I'm at today. Just really celebration and appreciation, I think, too, kind of all bundled up into one.
Celebrating.
Yeah. Virginia, how about you? What are you celebrating today?
I'm going to celebrate good energy. Like I was sharing with you guys before we hit record, I've been working with a coach, and this is the first week in a long time where I have felt excited and energetic and just on top of it and ready for the next thing instead of feeling overwhelmed when new things come your way. So I'm just really happy to kind of I feel like I'm back, you know? So that is such a good feeling. Thank you to my coach.
And you are speaking my language, because it's our energy is everything. If we don't, and it's that place where our body is telling us danger, but we're ignoring it for so long. Mm-hmm. And then once we stop ignoring it, you can breathe.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm actually celebrating the same thing, but I'm celebrating on behalf of my clients. Because many of my clients recently, 2024 has been a challenging year. Mm-hmm. We are in a challenging season, and it is not easy to be a human right now, right? Let's just own it. It's not easy to always be a human right now. And so allowing themselves to be a little vulnerable and to do the work that it takes to breathe again. I'm honored that they trust me in the process, but also I'm celebrating them for being able to be at a place where they realize they don't have to walk around with, the cement shoulders and the giant hornet's nest in the belly and like all of the things. It's that place of overwhelm and stress and stagnation and de-energized, lack of energy. They're able to move through that. So I'm celebrating them.
I love that.
Nice.
Yeah. So as promised, we're going to let the world know a little bit more about you, Virginia, because, you're kind of a cool person doing some amazing stuff in the world. Yeah. And owning that, right? Sometimes we have these dips and sometimes we need extra support to get out of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Virginia is the founder of Podcast Abundance, where they offer seamless podcast production. She is not our producer, by the way, although I would totally go to her if we hired a producer, but I am our producer.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Seamless podcast production and content repurposing services. Her entrepreneurial journey began in 2018 after her husband and she eliminated $80,000 in debt in just 3.5 years, inspired by personal finance podcasts. This experience led her to launch a personal finance coaching business. And realizing the value of production support for her own podcast and YouTube channel, she created Podcast Abundance to help business owners focus on their core work while they handle all the technical details. Outside of work, Virginia is a dedicated mom of 2 kiddos, often found at soccer games in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. She's been married since 2005 to her husband, a soccer coach and math teacher. They've rescued every pet they've ever owned. Yay for rescues. And currently have 2 Great Pyrenees German Shepherds that are about 3.5 years old. Like 3.5 is a good number for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it. That's our number today.
Welcome to the show, Virginia.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, podcast abundance. I just love that word. And you finding your way to this place of abundance from a scarcity place, working your way through debt and all of those things. My question is, I want to say, what's the secret sauce? Like, how do you do that?
Well, much like I think your concepts are with your show, we're never really there. You never really achieve the thing. You're never done, right? So abundance feels like that big concept to most people. Like, I don't know anyone that just walks around like, I have all the abundance. I am everything, right? Like that just doesn't happen. So the podcast, when I originally launched it, that was the thing. It's still to this day called Reaching Abundance because I feel like we're working towards it. We're, step by step, you pay off debt. Okay, great. There's more to tackle in life than just debt, right? So you're just constantly trying to, whether it's that 1% better each day or, whatever concept you tend to be drawn towards, but we're just always a work in progress.
That place of abundance and reaching for it, right? I love the title of your podcast, Reaching Abundance. It is something that people think, when I feel abundant, when I have abundance, when I have wealth, when I have whatever the thing is, then everything will be okay. Has that been your experience?
100%.
Yeah.
It's really tough to not have those moving targets. Like, I think that's just a societally ingrained issue across everything, right? When you have more money, when you have that career, when you have the new car, when you live in the nice neighborhood, like all those things, you think that's going to solve all your problems. And And as we go through life, each time you set your sight on a new target, that's kind of inherently what you think. When I lose 5 pounds, after I am done having kids, after, when my kids are grown up, like those thoughts almost never stop. I think it's just important to recognize them and realize the flaw in them and say, okay, like, I'm never not going to have problems. I'm never not going to lay awake at night occasionally thinking about whatever is stressing me at that time. There will be new challenges tomorrow, but there's also accomplishments that you've taken care of today, right? So I can most equate this to when we have little babies. For a while, I had 2 under 2, and that was the most stressful time of my life. But it was also the most wonderful, right? So you've got the yin and yang, right? You've got the both going. And I remember telling myself, like, everything will be different in 3 months. Everything will be different in 6 months, and just continuing to edge forward. And so whatever phase someone is in, maybe it's little babies, maybe it's not, maybe it's something bigger, business challenges, right? We run businesses and there are constant challenges. No matter how many years you're in business, it's like there are new challenges and new levels and new mindset issues that you don't think you had before, but then you discover them. And so, I just think that's important to recognize there's value in the now and the challenges that you feel, and there are accomplishments that you're making today, and it's almost never going to change. Those accomplishments are always going to be there. Those challenges are always going to be there. They're just different.
Yeah.
I don't know if
You're
that's
talking
encouraging
about, right, yeah, no, I think it is encouraging because it normalizes, right? That we're all continuing to seek, continuing to reach, continuing to move towards something.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't need to be defeating when we're always looking to that next thing.
Yeah.
And to recognize that when we get to those crunchy bits, when it is hard, it's not forever. Because I think that's what stops a lot of people. And I often use the statistic that when we have an emotional response to something, because a lot of my clients bring these very heavy emotions and they're like, but I'm going to get stuck in this forever. And it's like, no, an emotional wave only lasts 60 to 90 seconds. Now you may have another wave right after that, but very likely if you're aware that you're in an emotional wave, you can ride that out and see what's coming next versus being in the middle of it and then reacting to it and therefore causing another snowball effect.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Well, yeah, and it's Virginia, when you're talking about, like, there's always this movement, right? There's this awareness that if we can move in some way or be intentional about our awareness, our actions, that brings so much more, like, get our power back when we're paying attention, and we don't, like, we're not like throwing up our arms and giving up. It's like, yeah, you know what, it is hard. Let's just call it what it is. It can suck sometimes, and that's okay. But it's like Kim said, right? Like, it's not going to suck forever. But there's this movement that we need to take. There's this intentionality that we need to have so that we can find our way through those crunchy bits.
Yeah.
So when you were, Virginia, when you were going through this period of time, you'd heard these podcasts. You wanted to reclaim some power around finances. Did you think of it that way? Like, what was the catalyst to even start that process other than just hearing them?
Okay. To start the process, I can give you just a small backstory. Um, we had two kids pretty close together. And so you've got medical bills. We had been out of the country before that. And so we came back and bought vehicles for cash and just were kind of like getting our lives back settled in the US here. And one of those cash vehicles, the radiator blew. And so, of course, like my husband's trying to get my son to his babysitter's house. I'm on my way to work somewhere. And the vehicle's smoking, like panic mode, right? And there was just like a series of events like that. We needed a new car. My mom was going through a divorce. I had volunteered unknowingly, kind of, to just support her no matter what, and kind of didn't really set boundaries around that. So very quickly, we were funding attorney's fees for her. There was just a lot that happened and just kind of piled up. And in retrospect, like, of course, I learned a lot of lessons, right? If you want to help someone that you love and it is a monetary commitment, that's great. Make it finite, define it, right? Okay, I will give you $5,000. I mean, that's still a very generous gift. Put that boundary there to say it's a gift. This is the extent that we can do, instead of committing, oh, we're going to support you no matter what. This is crazy. Because, we lead with our hearts, and sometimes our heart doesn't count money. so, so that, there's a series of events there. So the catalyst really was just like the piling debt and the piling stress that went with it, and just kind of realizing like, ugh, this got out of hand. And we have two kids in daycare at this point for us to both work. I had already been listening to some podcasts, and so I knew the power of a woman's income over time and the hit that takes if you do take time off of work beyond your typical maternity leave, which, that's a whole conversation in itself. But so I knew that I needed to keep working, even if I felt like all I was doing was paying for daycare, because I knew, okay, those compounding raises over time, that was important. It really just all, like stress does, it just piles up and kind of hits the fan at some point, and you're like, I can't do this anymore. Like something has to give. And I don't know what else it could be besides, I guess we'll file bankruptcy or something. Like those were the thoughts. It was like, I can't do this. I'm sitting on the floor pumping, my son's running around, my baby's asleep over here. Like, and I'm sitting there crying, pumping. Like it was just terrible. Right. So, while at the time I did accounting. And so while I was at work, I could just listen to podcasts all day and just learn and think and go, okay, can we do that? Like, I don't know. Can we allocate that much? Like, what do we do? Just learned a lot about it and started just following those people's instructions, what applied to me, right? You got to filter out. And the funny thing that I thought that kind of really brought me on this journey to start coaching women was most of the financial advice out there was male driven and for men. There was nobody at the time that I could find that talked about this phase of life that I was in, with two little kids, daycare, diapers, formula, pumping, trying to work, like all the things, and financial stress. There was no show that covered that. So that's what really inspired me to start the podcast. Of course, once I got past that debt and like had perspective on it, I was like, this needs to exist. So, yeah, that's kind of what started it all.
Paints quite the picture, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a pretty one.
I mean, no, but while my circumstances were different, I definitely know that feeling of, but where's the help I need?
Yep. and having to find some help, right? And then filter it. So you're doing extra work to filter what's applicable to you while trying to manage everything. And the whole thought was like, there has to be a better way. There has to be this, peaceful point in life to where, I am empowered and I feel at least in some control of all these things, right? And of course, the first thing was, let's figure out how to take care of this debt. Let's, start saving little bits here and there so that when the next vehicle has an issue, that we don't panic and go put $500 down on a brand new vehicle and then we're saddled with a payment. So like there's just like a series of bad decisions that you're at risk of making when you're stressed like that, when you don't have a plan. And of course, everything's referenced to finance here, but this can be in any facet of life. Anytime you're stressed about anything, you're generally more at risk for making kind of panic mode decisions. And sometimes those aren't the right decisions. So, yeah.
Yeah, we lose our capacity to think outside the box, to have even a straight thought when we are stressed, and recognizing that. So there was a little bit of that forethought, right? To say, hey, like, how can I kind of break that cycle and get myself out of, so I'm making better decisions because I'm not making them in the moment. And yet, like, there's still those stressful moments that come up. How do you stop making bad choices when you're in those moments, even if you are planning?
Yeah. When it came to finances, the first level of security was to have something in savings because, at some point when expenses do start to hit, you tend to whittle through your savings until you're up against a wall. And that's when the panic really starts and you start to make not good decisions, right? You start to finance things. You start to, you know, the phrase is rob Peter to pay Paul. Those, messier decisions, right? So the first step is just to have a little bit of savings, even that if that just means some cash set aside in a savings account or in your wallet or whatever. I mean, sometimes back then when it was just very, very lean, having, 20 or $50 in my wallet like made me feel better. It made me panic less. And that sounds so minute. I mean, what is $20 going to get you? But it felt better.
These days, not much.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this is 10 years ago. But it felt a little bit better. And I was less likely to go, oh my God, like what if I need gas, or what if whatever, what if we have to buy baby formula? So just little steps, and everyone is different. So, and everyone's in a different situation. So maybe it's not many, maybe it's a different scenario, but find something small that will make you feel more secure, and recognizing, okay, when this happens, that's when I'm panicking. That's when I tend to make these bad decisions. Let me take a step back, like allow some sort of cooling off period, an hour, a day, anything that you can to give yourself perspective. For me, it really helps to step outside a lot of times, just whether that was at the office or in my home. If I could just step outside, literally in the backyard, not even go anywhere really, like on the porch, that will help me reframe things and make better decisions even to this day.
Yeah. It's that place of grounding, because, and this is kind of, that's that celebration that I was having with my clients, right? So we often think that stress is happening in our brains. It is not. Stress is just a physiological response to something outside of our bodies, right? To something that is either a real or perceived danger. That is stress. Stress is a physiological response. We embody stress, right? Yeah, very often. That's what we're doing. And so what I'm hearing you say is one of the things that's supportive is finding a way to ground yourself, to create clarity so that, again, the biology, what is physically happening in our body, it allows that to calm down enough for you to have clarity of thought, for you to make reasoned decisions, to have a little bit more personal agency, right? It's really hard to be operating for personal agency when we're flooded, right? And then it's also to understand what works for you. So those small anchoring points, that's what I would call that $20 or $50 in your wallet would be an anchoring point, right? That allows you to still feel tethered, because we very often start to spin when we're untethered.
Yeah.
When we're feeling like we're floating around out there and we can't find ground when we need it. So yeah, that 20 or $50 will feel good. Right? Okay, I'm tethered. I know that.
Yeah.
It can be, right, a trusted friend on speed dial. I know that I'm going to talk to them every day. Everything's going to be okay. I'm not alone. Yeah. I think it's fascinating when as money is such, it's such a powerful thing in our lives. And yet it shows us, I feel like it holds a mirror up to like where we feel insecure, where we feel confident, where we feel challenged, where we feel fear. Like just start talking about money and it's going to all come out for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece that I even thought was so interesting. I recognized behaviors in myself. I recognized that lack of boundaries that I said. I recognized what I felt like I could and couldn't talk about with my husband. We each have our triggers and they're both very different. Triggers, use that word lightly, but like when it comes to money, certain things set off a conversation in a certain direction. That's what I mean there. It just really made you recognize like maybe not even why you do something, but that you do it. Then maybe, hopefully, down the road, you could discover why, dig into that. For me, it took a lot of the action of actually making some progress on the debt and starting to have some little wins. You pay off one card, you have some savings built up, you pay off the next card. I actually found challenges as we got further into the debt payoff process. You would think that would be exciting because you're like halfway or almost done or whatever. But I actually found challenges maintaining pace or progress. And because it's 3.5 years. I mean, how often do you have a single goal that you're just like full steam ahead for 3.5 years? You get tired. You want to just like go on a vacation, so I found challenges there. And down the road, in time, especially towards the end, that's where I found perspective and able to look back and look at like family behavior and look at various relationships throughout my life and start to identify like, okay, I see where that came from, but sometimes that's a much longer process. Sometimes you might not be able to do something like that 4 or 5 or 10 years after. So if that's possible to look inward in that way, and if you feel comfortable with that level of awareness, I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's the trick with those long-term goals, right? We are often motivated and energized at the beginning because we can see how our lives would be different. And we're talking about money, but we insert challenge here, right? And yet as we go, it really does get tiring. And it's like, right? Our resolve starts to fade a little bit. Our connection to the outcome starts to fade a little bit because it just takes so much, like climbing that mountain, right? Like Yes, we want to get to the top. We really want to see what's up there. And yet it can feel so heavy in the moment that we'll be halfway there or almost all the way there, and we can lose our connection with that outcome so easily.
Well, because we've changed during that time frame, right? In year 2, you were different than you were, right, at year 0. And so when you hit that and you've been going and you've been focused, so, right, weight loss or body image, that's another place where a lot of people, where it's a longer term goal. It's not an overnight thing. Our finances, building a business. How many entrepreneurs give up in the first couple of years?
Yeah.
Right? It's like all of these different things. Anything that is going to have a protracted timeline, we feel excited. We step into it. And then we get to that place where we're not there yet. And even though we knew it was going to take a longer time, it's like, but why am I not there? And so the doubt creeps in, the stress gets higher again. And so, Virginia, what did you and your husband do in that time where you hit like year 2, 2.5, and you're going, we're still not there?
Yeah. Honestly, it's really hard to remember.
Sure.
I mean, I know that's not the answer you wanted, but it is very hard to remember because now I remember rock bottom very vividly. And I remember the stress and the, being on the phone with credit cards and, the cash in my pocket or wallet. And, I remember these different little like clips, like out of a movie. But in general, the whole thing is such a blur. That's not the answer you wanted.
No, but it does speak to something that I think is very real, which is when we dissociate, when we disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And there's a whole lot of stuff in the world. I'm not even going to name it specifically. There's just a whole lot of stuff in the world that talks about, right, the dangers of dissociation, the dangers of disconnecting, the dangers of, right, it's like we need to be so connected. Particularly in the, the coaching world and in the personal development world, it's like there's historically all of this stuff of like, let's go into the past and pull all of that forward so we can put it all in front of you and you can go through it again. And there's a time and a place where that can work. Yeah. And kind of what I'm hearing you say is like, yeah, I absolutely remember what it felt like in my body, what I was experiencing at that time. And the rest of the time, I was just doing what I needed to do.
Yes.
And that is what, and again, it's not even looking at a specific like thing that people are working on. That's the way most people are walking around in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And some of it's okay, right? It's not, and some of it's not, but like it's, and that's not a judgment. It's just a matter of that's what we do to survive. That's what we do to get through.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think, there was a focus on this is what we have to do. And we were making progress. And like I said, we had 2 little kids.
That's the other part of it.
2014 was when my daughter was born. And so that's the second kid. So, and they're 2 years apart. And so those years of, when he's not even 4 and she's not even 2 yet, that whole period where you have little kids and then this whole journey we're talking about.
You were in survival mode.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, like you said, like I remember pieces. I remember important moments with my babies. I remember things that I wanted to. I remember that the new car that we bought in panic, that was the last thing to get paid off. That was the cherry on top, So I remember pieces, but I don't, it's all very blurry. But yeah, I think it's like you said, like I was doing what I had to do and I was trying to balance being present with my kids and my family while having this like stuff in the back of my mind all the time. And yeah, I mean, the kids took precedent. And so there was definitely times where it was like, all right, here's a couple hours, dive into the finances, pay some things, do some things, look at my spreadsheet, figure it out, and then like disassociate from that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just go be a mom now? Like,
Yeah.
can I just
Put it in a box,
yeah.
shelve it.
Yeah. So it's like you said, I don't think that's necessarily bad or good in given situations. I think it's very much a coping mechanism. At least for me in this scenario, it was. And I wasn't even intentional about that at that time. It wasn't like, I'm going to disassociate from this spreadsheet now. I'm going to go be a mom. Like that was not the thought process. That's just what was happening. And now here we are 10 years later, I'm looking back and being able to say that. But you just do what you have to do. And there was still an awareness around being a present mom, being a good employee, handling the debt that I needed to, handling my mom's situation, being the most present wife I could be. It's like you're juggling everything. And there was definitely presence in all of those pockets. But then as a whole, as a memory of the entire period, it's like a blur.
Well, sorry, Louise, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, but that's the messy middle, right? Like
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, right. Like when we're there, and then we have these moments of really like pausing and connecting, refocusing on what's important, reconnecting with your goal, and we can't stay connected to that all of the time. That's an impossible ask because we are so many things in our lives, and it's messy, and I think like the whole just hearing you talk, Virginia, it's like we're in a fog when we're in the messy middle. Like there's mud on the windshield, and every once in a while the wipers come around and wipe it off, and you're like, oh, that's where I am. Okay. and then it's muddy again. And you're dealing with other stuff. And I think your story is like, let's be present enough so that when the wipers do clear the windshield, like we're paying attention and we have that moment to connect, to remember what's important, to be a mom, to be a partner, to be a financier, to figuring your way through this. And then it's mucky again. And yeah, that's life. And we don't have to be like cleaning the window all the time. We miss out on so much when we do.
Yeah. Well, that's the heart of why we wanted to do this podcast, why we changed our branding those months ago, because it's this place of empowerment isn't you've reached the pinnacle, right? Going back to abundance, what we were talking about at the beginning, like it isn't that place that you reach it and then you stay there. None of this, we're human beings. And every moment there's a different experience, and that's going to take us to a different place. And so, yeah, sometimes we're going to feel it. We're going to be in that place of embodiment. Sometimes we're going to dissociate. And we're going to just say, that's going to go in a box. I'm going to compartmentalize and not deal with it right now. Not even consciously. That's just what we're going to do. Right. And then there's going to be these other times where we feel abundant. We feel empowered. We feel like we're in it. Then there's going to be other times where we're completely disempowered. And we can feel disempowered, even though in your story, you're talking about how you are taking steps of empowerment, how you are stepping into your power, right? I am taking back control of our financial situation. That is an element of empowerment. And yet you probably felt disempowered during the process.
Oh yeah. It's so easy during those times to look around and feel like, nobody else has this problem. Nobody else is like not going out to eat because you're paying off your credit cards. Like, why are we so weird? And, it's so easy to just fabricate these stories about what you think other people's situations are. So it's really important to catch that and try to reframe them, try to adjust what could actually be those other people's stories. Like, sure, maybe they don't have debt and they spend all their money and they do whatever they want. Maybe not. Maybe behind closed doors it's a totally different story and they have money issues too. I mean, it's a completely normal human condition to have money issues, FYI.
Yeah. Yeah. There are so many human issues that I wish we would just normalize.
Yeah.
Mental health stigma, financial issues, sexual issues, body image issues. Like, can we just work issues? Like all of it.
Yeah.
I just wish we could normalize the human experience a little bit more.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're doing that with this show.
Yeah. Well, and that's where finance podcasts normalized it for me. I found people who, and it sounds a little bit crazy, but as a listener, you feel like that host is your friend, your confidant, your advisor, your coach, your whatever, and you know them. You know what they're going to say before they say it. They know their jokes. That like you're, for lack of better phrasing, you're in love with this host, right? You listen to them every day, every week, whatever it is. I went through, of course you can like fill your app with however many hours you want per day of different shows. And you start to know, okay, they come out every Tuesday and they come out every Thursday and this is every 2 weeks and whatever. So I had this stack of quote unquote friends. They don't know me. They don't know me at all, but I know them.
Okay, but do they know you now?
Yes.
That's what's cool.
Yes. So that's the twist, right? That whole process is why I'm so passionate about producing the financial shows that I do now, because I know that they help people. I know that people need this information because I was there. They helped me, right? So that was a very, and that wasn't expected at the time. I wasn't like, oh, I love finance podcasts, I'm going to go become a producer. It was this really interesting path of like the universe actually pushed me to be here now, to be in this role. So that was the very interesting, unexpected twist of it all. Was I attended a conference. Was totally fangirling out because I knew like them. They didn't know me. But after attending a couple times, suddenly you're in the same circles of these people, and they're humans too. And so it feels intimidating at first, but for you to go up and introduce yourself and say, hey, I listened to your show, it helped me so much. Like, that's all a host ever wants to hear. And so they would talk to me and I would talk to them and say like, yeah, I edit podcasts now because of it. And, it came full circle. So now it's really cool. Actually, I'll go. So by the time this airs, I will have gone to the conference again where I met several of them, and they will all be there. We'll all hang out. So it's going to be great.
That's awesome. And I know as part of your story is also the aspect of connecting with women, particularly around money, through the podcast, through other ways as well. I know that was a conversation you and I had several months ago. Yeah. Do you want to touch on that at all in terms of this part of the story as well?
Yeah. When I was, in the depths of it, I really had a hard time finding finance information by a woman for a woman in my phase of life. So young kids, career, married, and trying to pay off debt. There wasn't a show that talked about the costs of daycare and balancing that with your house payment and, diapers being near as much as an electricity bill, right? Like there was nobody that talked about that. It was all just, here's the percentages. And it was very male driven without any consideration for the typical needs that a mom or children have. And so when I launched my show, that was my take, was like, this is for moms in this phase of life. And even since then, I've helped many, many, many female financial advisors, CPAs, bookkeepers, people in the finance space produce their shows. Not that I won't produce a male-driven show, but I really appreciate helping getting women's voices out there because we do have such a different, valuable perspective.
So when you started introducing women's voices into your work, what has been the response? Like, I'd love to know what you're hearing back from those that may be fangirling the ones that you're producing.
Oh, that's a great one. I like that. Yeah, the roles have totally switched, right? I have really enjoyed seeing the personal finance community grow on the female attendance spectrum, let's say. In the past, even if you just search like personal finance podcasts, like everybody go have fun, right? You're going to see a lot of men, but you're also going to see some pink, and you're going to see lots of bright colors, and you're going to see beautiful women's faces of all ethnicities and colors, and that was not the case 10 years ago. So that is the most beautiful progress that I can say is just tangible, just with your eyes. Like anybody can see it, how that space has changed and grown. Many of the women, and I think this is across the board, the financial advisors that have helped, they're generally intimidated at first to start their show. I'm hearing less and less of that as we move forward and get more progressive, and there are more women's shows out there. So that's refreshing as well.
So what do we want our listeners to take away today? Or what are we all taking away today from this conversation? I have many things, but I wanted to hear from you guys first.
I think it's important just to recognize that whatever your challenges are right now, they're going to be short-lived, even if they feel big and scary and terrible, right? They will get resolved. They will pass. It might take 3 months, 6 months. Like I was saying, with your children when they're growing, it's like, okay, we'll be out of diapers in 3 months. Like it's going to be better. But, finances, okay, 3.5 years. Some people, maybe you graduated with law school debt, and so that journey might be a bit longer. It's okay. Find a community that, Louise was celebrating community a little while ago. Find a community of people that you can talk to about whatever the thing is, even if those are made up friends that are in your ears, that are podcasters that you're listening to for help. That's okay.
Love that, the made up friends that are in your. We hope to be made up friends in people's. Like we are your friends.
Yeah, right here.
Right here. Yeah, I love that. I think for me, it's taking away this place of your journey is okay. Your journey is okay. Reducing the stigma for whatever it is that feels disempowering in the moment, right? Because we do have, when we lean into community, when we see possibility, when we allow ourselves to be open to anything other than what we are currently experiencing, that to me is it's the not just the seed, but it's the germination of that place of empowerment. And so that is something that I'm definitely taking away from this, is just allowing ourselves to be in the journey, allowing ourselves to see the possibility and see that being open to what can be can create such change. Like you just said, even towards the end there is, right, all of the different faces that are now in this arena that was definitely male saturated. And we see that in all sorts of different industries. So it's possible. We just have to be in it and acknowledge our own journey through it. Yeah. Louise, how about you? You said there was lots.
Well, yes, that community piece is a big part of how we kind of can navigate through this messy, mucky middle place. Virginia, when you were talking about listening to the podcast and distilling down and taking those bits of information and making them your own, and it just resonated so much, is that like not every answer to every problem is like this cut and paste. And we are in charge of what's going to work and what's not going to work, and to fill your ears with those ideas and not be like brainwashed into thinking there was a particular way, that you're very empowered by picking those pieces that will work for you. And I didn't want to lose that in our conversation today, because it really stuck out to me, is that it's like no 3 easy steps to financial freedom. It's like, what's going to work for me? How can I bring this closer to me and make it work in my world with my real world circumstances? And I just love that. So, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you highlighting that, because that was kind of lost in there. I agree with you. Thank you.
And I'm glad that it's not lost, because it's very important.
Yes.
Virginia, what do you have coming up in the world, and how can people connect with you?
Thank you for asking. I am excited about what 2025 has for the podcast space. We saw so many changes with YouTube and Spotify and, just all the big players making moves constantly in 2023 and 24. So, it's one of those things we keep rolling, we keep learning, we keep figuring out what the new buttons are and what they do. And I'm just excited for what's coming up. So yeah, it's going to be a great year.
And the best place for people to find you?
Thank you. Forgot about that.
That's okay.
I'm at podcastabundance.com and on Instagram at podcastabundance. And the most other active place would be LinkedIn at Virginia Elder.
Perfect. And we will include all those links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Virginia, for this conversation. Kim too. It's just fabulous to be a part of this conversation today. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in and having some made up friends in your head. That would be us today. Really, really appreciate everyone today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And we will see you back here next week if you are on video, or you'll hear your friends in your ears.
Yes.
Whichever way.
Thank you all.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye for now. And that's all for this week's episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. We hope today's episode has sparked something within you. Remember, we're all on this journey together. If something did resonate with you today, why not share it with a friend who might need to hear it too? You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. Your feedback not only helps others find the show, but also helps us understand what's most valuable to you. Until next time, be kind to yourself, stay curious, and remember, we're walking right alongside you. Thanks for being part of our community.